Back to the daily grind. The channel's getting false flagged by triggered trolls, so make sure you subscribe to the new channel. Let's get to the MMA news. With Jon Jones being declared by the MMA world a cheater. I had to think about that. I'm saying the MMA world, like, I know there's probably 3 of you motherfuckers out there that are like, Jon Jones isn't a cheater. But as of right now, man, there's not too much to say. He just got popped. If you didn't know, he just got popped by USADA for his UFC 214 knockout win over Daniel Cormier. We're waiting to see what happens, but I mean, most likely the win's going to be overturned. He's going to be stripped of his belt. It's going to be given back to Daniel Cormier, and Jon Jones, boy, he's going to be suspended. Oh, the world, no one's going to be cool with this, man. This is not fucking cool at all. I'm not cool with this, man. You know, I picked Daniel Cormier to win at UFC 214, and it wasn't because, I mean, I thought it was a clean Jon Jones, and if he would have won, it would have set up a huge trilogy. But, whew, man, this is nobody really expected this. Even if some people say that they never bought it, or they don't buy that Jon Jones would never body was clean. Where were you at during UFC 214? I didn't see anyone in the comments say it's because he's still cheating. It's because he's still on steroids. I didn't even see anybody saying that cyborg excuse, saying his body permanently changed from the steroid, so even if he's clean, he's still a cheater. I didn't see anybody in the comments saying he's still a cheater. Now there's a lot of people saying I never bought it. I even thought he was clean. I was like, oh my god, he just came out as a clean fighter and knocked out Daniel Cormier. He's officially the GOAT. Go back and run the tape. I said he came back as a clean fighter and knocked out Daniel Cormier. And since he didn't come out, since he wasn't clean, since he was a dirty Jon Jones that knocked out Daniel Cormier, in my opinion, Daniel Cormier is the greatest fighter of all time. Now let's get into the debate, because there's a few options. Jon Jones is out. Well, actually, he's in. I mean, if you feel like that, tell me in the comments. This is going to be a fun comment section, because Conor McGregor's about to fight Floyd Mayweather in 4 days. So with that being said, there's going to be a lot of people arguing for Conor. So let's get into the candidates for the greatest fighter of all time. Now, for the greatest, no, we're going to do the greatest pound for pound fighter currently today, not the GOAT, not the greatest of all time. We're talking about the greatest pound for pound fighter today in the UFC. Now, I don't want to say GOAT because I don't want to bring in Anderson Silva and Fedor and these guys that aren't fighting currently. So what I'm talking about, when I say GOAT, I mean the GOAT as of today. Like, who's the pound for pound, number 1 pound for pound fighter in the world today? Here are the candidates. Conor McGregor. We have Conor McGregor. He's a candidate. He was the first person to hold 2 UFC titles at the same time. We have Demetrius Johnson. He's defended his belt. He's tied Anderson Silva, defended his belt 13 times straight. He's going to break the record at UFC 215. After he breaks the record, he will have the longest UFC title run, you know, the most title defenses in UFC history, and he's, you know, finished guys in all ways. You know, he doesn't have, I think so they said in his last fight he was a blue belt in jiu-jitsu, but he still finished a black belt in Wilson Hayes. So, I mean, we've seen his submission skills. We've seen him knock guys out. We've seen him just outclass guys. So you can argue Demetrius Johnson, but this is one thing. Well, we'll get into the negatives after we get to the candidates. So we got Conor McGregor, Demetrius Johnson. We got Daniel Cormier. Daniel Cormier, undefeated at heavyweight, undefeated at light heavyweight. He didn't win a belt at heavyweight, but that's because he moved down because his teammate Cain Velasquez was the champion and he didn't want to fight his teammate for the title, so he moved down to light heavyweight. When he went to light heavyweight, he was undefeated except for to Jon Jones. He lost to Jon Jones before USADA and the first fight. After that, they were scheduled to fight at UFC 200. Jon Jones was pulled out of UFC 200 due to a USADA violation. Therefore, the fight had to be rescheduled all the way till UFC 214 when they finally got their rematch for Daniel Cormier to avenge his only loss of his career. He lost that fight to Jon Jones again, so therefore Daniel Cormier was undefeated at heavyweight, undefeated at light heavyweight to everybody except for Jon Jones. Now that Jon Jones has popped dirty, the only person to ever beat Daniel Cormier in his career was a dirty fighter. dirty Jon Jones. And even though Jon Jones was dirty, he's the greatest fighter of all time if you don't factor in, drug tests. Because when you go to the greatest fighter of all time and you bring up Anderson Silva and Fedor and these guys, they didn't have USADA drug testing. So when you just talk about overall GOAT, you can put Jon Jones still up there. But when you talk about the number one pound for pound fighter today with USADA in the UFC, who is it? Because where we can't bring in Gegard, he's not in the UFC anymore, and Jon Jones with USADA, we can't use him. So it's out of Demetrius Johnson, Conor McGregor, and Daniel Cormier. Those are the three choices. My vote, Daniel Cormier. But let's get into and I'll explain why. Actually, here are the good and the bad about the three choices. Now, Demetrius Johnson. A lot of people say the flyweight division isn't very stacked. It's the talent level at the flyweight division isn't as high as the talent in other divisions, and that's true and false. I mean, now someone like Joe Rogan, and some people say at the flyweight division because they're not knocking guys out, that's where you have to be the most technical. So it is true that in the flyweight division they're probably the most technical fighters in the UFC, but does that make them the pound for pound greatest? I don't think so. And now, this is what I'll say. Demetrius Johnson has lost. At 10 pounds higher, he lost to Dominic Cruz. And so, Daniel Cormier, who my pick, he's never lost, unless you talk about a dirty fighter. Dominic Cruz wasn't a dirty fighter. Same thing with Conor McGregor. He's lost. He lost to Nate Diaz in the UFC, not a dirty fighter. So, I mean, you have that argument. Both of these guys have lost to clean fighters. Daniel Cormier's never lost to a clean fighter. Now, for Demetrius Johnson, he only fights at one weight class. He refuses to move up to 135 pounds. And Conor McGregor, Conor McGregor and Daniel Cormier have fought at more than one weight class. So that kind of takes that's one knock against Demetrius Johnson, is he only fights at the smallest weight class. And someone said, as far as the talent is concerned, you don't find many guys running around that can make 125 pounds. So even though you're the most technical down there, a lot of guys just can't make that weight. So some of the best fighters in the world can't make that weight. Even there's some guys that can make 135 that can't make 125. So there's just not a lot of guys that can make 125. So that's a knock against Demetrius as well. Now, he is on a long title defense run, but Daniel Cormier, he would still have his title. I mean, who knows? It's weird because he's like 38 years old, so he'll probably not be able to go on as long of a title run as Demetrius Johnson, but he's won in two weight classes, undefeated at a heavier weight class, champion at 100, at the not 100 but 205. I was thinking of Demetrius Johnson, but he was the champion at the lower weight class, undefeated there as well. So I mean, Demetrius Johnson doesn't get my vote because he only fights at one weight class and he's lost before at a weight class above. Conor McGregor doesn't get my vote because even though what he's done is magnificent and becoming the first person to hold two belts at the same time, he got to skip all of the contenders in the lightweight division. He didn't have to fight anybody in the top 10 of the lightweight division. He got to just skip straight to Eddie Alvarez. He fought Nate Diaz, who I mean, he was they fought at welterweight, so that's why he doesn't count as someone in the top 10 of the lightweight division when Conor McGregor fought him. They fought at an unnatural weight class, and it wasn't like a number one contender fight. It wasn't like if Nate Diaz beat Conor McGregor, he was going to go on to fight for the title. Conor McGregor was fighting for the title with or without the Nate Diaz fight. The title fight just fell through, so he was forced to fight Nate Diaz instead. So he didn't have to fight any contenders to get his title shot at lightweight. Now, he did beat Eddie Alvarez to get his belt, but he hasn't defended his belt there. And not only has he not defended his lightweight title, he never was able to defend his featherweight title. Now, he did beat some, and also, I mean, as far as top 5 contenders, there are some top 5 contenders Conor McGregor didn't beat at featherweight. What I'm saying is Conor McGregor hasn't cleared out a division. Daniel Cormier has cleared out the light heavyweight division. There's nobody in the light heavyweight division, and he's even cleared it out more than Jon Jones, because Jon Jones never beat Rumble Johnson. Daniel Cormier beat him twice. Daniel Cormier has truly, like Demetrius Johnson, cleared out a division. So that's one knock against Conor. He hasn't cleared out a division. Now let's get to my vote, Daniel Cormier. He's cleared out a division. He's defended his belt. He's fought at more than one weight class. He's fought rematches, against people like Anthony Rumble Johnson, beat him again. He's undefeated. Another thing for Daniel Cormier. So, I mean, Daniel Cormier, he gets my vote. What are the knocks against Daniel Cormier? It's hard for me to find some. I mean, the only knock is he lost to Jon Jones, but that was a dirty fighter. And if you want to talk about losses, Conor McGregor lost to Nate Diaz on top of some other people outside of the UFC, and Demetrius Johnson lost to Dominic Cruz. So all of the candidates have technical losses, but when you talk about losing to clean fighters, you can only give that to Conor McGregor and Nate Diaz. So that's my vote. I'll be looking forward to you guys' vote in the comments. This is going to be interesting. And let me know if you think Jon Jones is still the number one pound for pound. I mean, he hasn't lost, but he's dirty. And you know what? I'm going to do another debate next. Is USADA bad for the UFC? That's two things I wanted to ask. So let the hitters know what the fuck you tell me in the comments. Who's the current number one pound for pound fighter in the UFC in your opinion? Is it Conor McGregor? Is it Demetrius Johnson? Or is it my vote, Daniel Cormier? Let's get it.